The Habits of Extraordinary People. How Ordinary Individuals Create Extraordinary Lives. Written and published by Rising Audiobook. Introduction. What if the biggest thing standing between the life you have and the life you dream of isn't talent, intelligence, money, or luck? What if the real difference is something far simpler and far more powerful? Every day, millions of people wake up with dreams. They dream of success, freedom, confidence, fulfillment, and impact. Yet only a small percentage ever turn those dreams into reality. Why? Are they smarter, more gifted, more fortunate? The answer may surprise you. Extraordinary people are not born extraordinary. They do not arrive in the world with special powers, perfect circumstances, or unlimited advantages. In fact, many of them begin exactly where you are now, facing uncertainty, self-doubt, setbacks, fears, and limitations. What separates them is not what they have, it's what they repeatedly do. Behind every remarkable achievement lies a collection of habits, small decisions made consistently over time. While most people focus on goals, extraordinary people focus on the daily actions that make those goals inevitable. They understand that success is not a single event, it is a process, a pattern, a way of living. The truth is that extraordinary lives are built one choice at a time, one disciplined action, one courageous decision, one intentional habit. In this audiobook, you will discover the 15 habits that transform ordinary individuals into extraordinary achievers. By the end, you'll have a practical blueprint for creating lasting success, unlocking your potential, and becoming the person you're capable of being. Your transformation begins now. Chapter 1. Setting a clear vision. Picture yourself stepping onto an airplane. You find your seat, fasten your seatbelt, and prepare for takeoff. The engines roar to life, and the aircraft begins to climb into the sky. A few minutes later, curiosity strikes, and you ask the pilot a simple question. Where are we going? The pilot shrugs and says, I don't know, we're just flying. It sounds absurd, doesn't it? Yet this is exactly how many people live their lives. They work hard, they stay busy, they wake up early, complete tasks and push through challenges. But deep down, they are not entirely sure where they are headed. They have movement, but not direction, effort, but not clarity, activity, but not purpose. One of the most important habits of extraordinary people is that they develop a clear vision for their lives. They know what they want, where they are going, and most importantly, why it matters. Their vision acts like a compass, guiding them through uncertainty and helping them make decisions that align with their future. Without a clear vision, life becomes reactive. You spend your days responding to whatever demands your attention. Other people's expectations begin shaping your choices. Opportunities become confusing because you have no framework for deciding which ones support your future and which ones distract you from it. Over time, this creates frustration. You may be working harder than ever while feeling as though you're getting nowhere. Many people assume that successful individuals have more motivation than everyone else. In reality, what often separates them is clarity. When you know exactly what you are working toward, your energy becomes focused. Decisions become easier. Sacrifices become more meaningful. Obstacles become easier to endure because you understand what lies on the other side. Think about the moments in your life when you felt most energized. Chances are, those moments were connected to a goal or dream that truly mattered to you. Perhaps you were building something, learning a new skill, pursuing a career opportunity, or working toward a personal transformation. The excitement did not come from the work itself. It came from the meaning behind the work. Vision gives meaning to effort. This is why extraordinary people spend time thinking about their future. They do not drift through life hoping things will improve. They intentionally define what success means to them. They ask difficult questions. What kind of person do I want to become? What kind of life do I want to create? What impact do I want to have on others? What would make me proud of the way I spent my years? These questions are powerful because they shift your focus from surviving to creating. Instead of allowing circumstances to dictate your future, you begin actively designing it. However, vision is not simply about dreaming. Dreams without action remain fantasies. Extraordinary people transform vision into measurable objectives. They take a large goal and break it into smaller, achievable steps. They understand that every great accomplishment begins as a series of small actions performed consistently. Imagine standing at the base of a mountain. The summit may seem impossibly far away. If you focus only on the distance, you may feel overwhelmed. But if you focus on taking the next step, and then the next, the climb becomes manageable. A clear vision provides the summit. Measurable goals provide the path. There will be difficult days. There will be moments when progress feels slow and setbacks make you question yourself. During those moments, your vision becomes more important than ever. It reminds you why you started. It helps you stay committed when emotions fluctuate. It gives you something larger than temporary discomfort to focus on. The truth is that extraordinary lives are rarely built by accident. They are built through intentional choices guided by a compelling vision. People who achieve remarkable results are not necessarily more talented than others. Often they simply have a clearer picture of where they are going and a deeper commitment to getting there. As you continue through this audiobook, remember this simple principle. You cannot consistently move toward a future you have never clearly defined. Before you can become extraordinary, you must first decide what extraordinary means to you. Your future begins with a vision. The clearer that vision becomes, the more powerful your actions will be. And when your actions align with a meaningful purpose, ordinary days begin creating extraordinary results. Chapter 2. Practicing self-discipline. There is a moment that arrives in every person's life, often quietly and without warning, when they stand at a crossroads between what feels good now and what will be good later. The alarm rings before sunrise, the workout is waiting, the book needs to be opened, the project needs attention, the difficult conversation needs to happen. In that moment, no audience is watching, no applause is coming, no reward is immediately visible. There is only a choice. Most people believe success is determined in grand moments, in major decisions, life-changing opportunities, or dramatic breakthroughs. But extraordinary people understand something different. They know that success is often determined in ordinary moments, when nobody is watching and when doing the right thing feels uncomfortable. That is the power of self-discipline. Self-discipline is not about being harsh with yourself. It is not about living without enjoyment or forcing yourself into endless struggle. At its core, self-discipline is the ability to act according to what matters most, rather than what feels easiest in the moment. It is choosing your future over your current mood. This is why self-discipline is one of the most important habits of extraordinary people. Motivation comes and goes, emotions rise and fall, circumstances change. But discipline creates consistency when everything else becomes unreliable. Think about how often people wait to feel motivated before taking action. They tell themselves they will start exercising when they feel inspired. They will begin writing when creativity arrives. They will work harder when they feel more confident. The problem is that motivation is unpredictable. Some days it shows up, many days it does not. Extraordinary people understand that waiting for motivation is a dangerous strategy. They build the habit of taking action regardless of how they feel. They learn that action often creates motivation, not the other way around. Imagine a professional athlete preparing for an important competition. There are mornings when they feel tired, days when they doubt themselves, moments when staying in bed seems far more appealing than training. Yet they show up anyway, not because they always feel motivated, but because they have developed the discipline to honor their commitment. This principle applies far beyond sports. It applies to every meaningful goal in life. The entrepreneur who builds a successful business, the student who masters a difficult subject, the artist who creates exceptional work, the parent who consistently shows up for their family. Their achievements are rarely the result of a single burst of inspiration. More often, they are the result of disciplined actions repeated over months and years. One of the greatest misconceptions about discipline is that it restricts freedom. In reality, discipline creates freedom. Consider someone who lacks financial discipline. They spend impulsively, avoid planning, and ignore long-term consequences. Initially, this feels liberating because they can do whatever they want. But eventually, poor choices create limitations, stress, and regret. Now consider someone who practices financial discipline. They save consistently, make thoughtful decisions, and delay immediate gratification. Their discipline may seem restrictive in the short term, but over time it creates options, security, and freedom. The same pattern appears in health, relationships, learning, and personal growth. Discipline may feel difficult today, but it often creates a better tomorrow. Another reason self-discipline is so powerful is that it builds trust in yourself. Every time you make a promise to yourself and keep it, you strengthen your self-respect. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through, someone who can be relied upon, someone who does not quit simply because things become difficult. Unfortunately, many people unknowingly damage this relationship with themselves. They set goals repeatedly and abandon them at the first obstacle. Over time, they begin to doubt their own ability to follow through. Their confidence weakens because confidence is built on evidence, and their actions have provided evidence of inconsistency. Extraordinary people understand that confidence and discipline are deeply connected. The more consistently you keep your commitments, the more confidence you develop in your ability to handle challenges. The good news is that discipline is not something people are born with. It is a skill that can be developed. Like a muscle, it grows stronger with use. You do not need to transform your entire life overnight. In fact, trying to do too much too quickly often leads to failure. Instead, begin with small promises that you can keep consistently. Read 5 pages each day. Walk for 10 minutes. Wake up 15 minutes earlier. Complete one important task before checking social media. These actions may seem insignificant, but they create something powerful: evidence. Evidence that you can trust yourself. Evidence that you are capable of change. Evidence that discipline is becoming part of your identity. Over time, these small victories compound. What once felt difficult becomes normal. What once required effort becomes automatic. Slowly, almost invisibly, your life begins to transform. The extraordinary person is not someone who never struggles. They experience temptation, fatigue, fear, and doubt, just like everyone else. The difference is that they have learned to act despite those feelings. They understand that feelings are temporary, but habits shape destiny. As you move forward, remember this truth: your future is not determined by what you do occasionally. It is determined by what you do consistently. And consistency is born from discipline. Every time you choose what matters most over what feels easiest, you cast a vote for the person you want to become. Those votes may seem small today, but over time they build an extraordinary life. That is the quiet power of self-discipline. It transforms intentions into actions, actions into habits, and habits into a future you can be proud of. Chapter 3. Investing in continuous learning. A curious thing happens when people stop learning. At first, nothing seems different. Life continues as usual. They go to work, complete their routines, and move through familiar patterns. Days become weeks, and weeks become years. Then one day, they look around and realize the world has changed while they have remained the same. The skills that once seemed valuable are no longer enough. The opportunities they hoped for belong to those who adapted. The confidence they once felt begins to fade because they are relying on yesterday's knowledge to navigate today's challenges. Extraordinary people avoid this trap because they understand a simple truth: growth is not an event, it is a lifelong process. One of the most powerful habits shared by remarkable individuals is an unwavering commitment to continuous learning. They never assume they know enough. They never reach a point where they believe growth is complete. Instead, they approach life with curiosity, humility, and a willingness to improve. This habit is not driven by insecurity, it is driven by possibility. They understand that every new skill learned, every lesson absorbed, and every perspective gained expands what is possible for their future. While others see learning as something that ends after school, extraordinary people recognize that learning is one of the greatest investments they can ever make. The beautiful thing about knowledge is that it compounds. Imagine placing a single drop of water into a bucket each day. On the first day, the change is barely noticeable. After a week, it still seems insignificant. But after months and years, the bucket begins to fill. Learning works the same way. A few pages read each day, a new skill practiced regularly, a meaningful conversation with someone experienced. These small acts may not feel life-changing in the moment, but over time they create extraordinary growth. Many people underestimate the power of consistent learning because they expect immediate results. They want transformation to happen quickly. They want to read one book and become wiser, attend one seminar and become successful, or learn one skill and become an expert. But mastery doesn't work that way. Extraordinary people understand that growth often happens quietly. There are long periods where progress feels invisible. Then suddenly, opportunities appear, challenges become easier to solve, and confidence begins to grow. What looks like overnight success is often the result of years of accumulated learning. Consider how children learn to walk. They fall repeatedly. They make mistakes constantly. Yet they never interpret failure as evidence that learning is impossible. They simply keep trying. Every stumble contains information. Every attempt brings improvement. Somewhere along the way, many adults lose this mindset. They become afraid of looking inexperienced. They avoid situations where they might fail. They stop asking questions because they worry about appearing uninformed. Unfortunately, the moment people stop being willing to learn is often the moment they stop growing. Extraordinary individuals remain students throughout their lives. They understand that ignorance is not weakness. Refusing to learn is. This willingness to learn requires humility. Humility allows you to admit that there is always more to discover. It opens the door to growth because it replaces the need to be right with the desire to improve. The most successful people in any field often possess this quality. Despite their achievements, they continue seeking knowledge. They read books, study trends, ask questions, and listen carefully to others. Their success does not make them less curious. It makes them more curious. Continuous learning is not limited to books or formal education. Some of life's most valuable lessons come from experience. Every challenge you face teaches resilience. Every mistake teaches wisdom. Every difficult conversation teaches communication. Every setback teaches adaptation. The question is not whether life is teaching you. Life is always teaching. The question is whether you are paying attention. Extraordinary people develop the habit of extracting lessons from every experience. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" they ask, "What can this teach me?" That small shift transforms obstacles into opportunities for growth. Another reason learning is so powerful is that it increases confidence, not the fragile confidence that depends on praise or approval, but genuine confidence rooted in competence. When you invest time in improving your knowledge and skills, you naturally become more capable. You begin solving problems more effectively. You make better decisions. You handle challenges with greater ease. Confidence becomes the natural result of preparation and growth. This is especially important in a rapidly changing world. Industries evolve. Technology advances. New opportunities emerge constantly. Those who commit to learning remain adaptable. Those who stop learning risk becoming stuck. Yet perhaps the greatest benefit of continuous learning is not professional success or financial gain. It is personal transformation. Every new idea has the potential to change how you think. Every lesson can challenge old beliefs. Every skill can reveal abilities you never knew you possessed. Learning expands not only what you know, but who you become. Think about the person you were 5 years ago, the experiences you've had, the lessons you've learned, and the knowledge you've gained have shaped your identity. Now imagine who you could become 5 years from today if you intentionally committed yourself to learning every single day. The possibilities are extraordinary. As you continue your journey, Remember that growth is not reserved for the gifted. It belongs to the curious. It belongs to those who remain teachable. It belongs to those who understand that every day presents an opportunity to become a little wiser, a little stronger, and a little better than they were yesterday. Extraordinary people are not extraordinary because they know everything. They are extraordinary because they never stop learning. And the moment you adopt that habit, your growth becomes limitless. Chapter 4. Building Unshakable Confidence. Think back to a moment when you doubted yourself. Perhaps it was before a job interview, a presentation, a difficult conversation, or a major life decision. Your heart raced, your mind filled with questions. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if everyone sees my weaknesses? Almost everyone has experienced moments like these. Yet when we look at highly successful people, it is easy to assume they are different. We imagine they move through life with unwavering confidence, free from fear and uncertainty. But the truth is far more encouraging. Extraordinary people are not confident because they never experience self-doubt. They are confident because they have learned how to move forward despite it. One of the most misunderstood qualities in the world is confidence. Many people think confidence is something you are born with. They believe some individuals naturally possess it, while others are destined to struggle with insecurity forever. Nothing could be further from the truth. Confidence is not a gift. It is a habit. It is something built, strengthened and reinforced over time through action, preparation and experience. Like a muscle, confidence grows when it is used and weakens when it is neglected. Unfortunately, many people spend years waiting for confidence before taking action. They tell themselves they will pursue their goals once they feel ready. They will start the business once they feel confident. They will speak up once they feel confident. They will take the opportunity once they feel confident. What they fail to realize is that confidence rarely comes first. Action comes first. Confidence is often the result of doing the very thing that scares you. Imagine someone learning to swim. Standing at the edge of the pool, they may feel uncertain and afraid. No amount of positive thinking can fully eliminate that fear. The only way to develop confidence in the water is to enter it, practice, struggle, learn and gradually improve. The same principle applies to every area of life. Confidence is not found by avoiding challenges. It is created by facing them. Extraordinary people understand this. They know that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is acting while fear is still present. Every time they take a step outside their comfort zone, they expand their belief in what they are capable of accomplishing. Over time, those small acts of courage begin to transform their identity. A person who once feared public speaking becomes a confident communicator because they keep speaking. A person who doubted their leadership ability becomes an effective leader because they continue leading. A person who questioned their talents becomes skilled because they continue practicing. The confidence did not appear overnight. It was earned through experience. Another important truth about confidence is that it grows from preparation. Consider a professional musician preparing for a major performance. The confidence they display on stage is not the result of wishful thinking. It is the result of countless hours spent practicing when nobody was watching. Preparation creates competence, and competence creates confidence. When you know you have done the work, you naturally trust yourself more. You stop relying on hope and begin relying on evidence. You know you have prepared, learned and practiced. That preparation becomes a foundation you can stand on during difficult moments. This is why extraordinary people invest so much time in developing their skills. They understand that genuine confidence is built on substance, not appearance. Many people attempt to project confidence without doing the necessary work behind the scenes. Eventually, that confidence collapses because it lacks a solid foundation. True confidence is quieter than most people realize. It is not arrogance. It is not believing you are better than others. It is not pretending to know everything. In fact, some of the most confident people are also the most humble. They understand their strengths, but they are also aware of their weaknesses. They do not need to prove themselves constantly because their self-worth is not dependent on external validation. This type of confidence comes from self-trust. Self-trust is built every time you keep a promise to yourself. When you commit to exercising and follow through, you strengthen self-trust. When you decide to learn a new skill and remain consistent, you strengthen self-trust. When you face a difficult situation instead of avoiding it, you strengthen self-trust. Each action sends a powerful message to your mind. I can rely on myself. Over time, this becomes one of the strongest forms of confidence a person can possess. Of course, there will still be moments of doubt. Even the most successful individuals experience uncertainty. The difference is that they no longer allow doubt to control their decisions. They understand that self-doubt is often part of growth. Whenever you pursue something meaningful, there will be moments when you feel unprepared. Whenever you challenge yourself, there will be moments when fear appears. These feelings are not signs that you should stop. They are signs that you are expanding beyond your current limits. Extraordinary people learn to interpret fear differently. Instead of seeing fear as a warning to retreat, they see it as evidence that growth is nearby. They understand that confidence is not built inside the comfort zone. It is built at its edges. Every challenge faced, every obstacle overcome, every difficult conversation completed, every risk taken. These experiences become proof that you are capable of handling more than you once believed. Gradually, your confidence becomes less dependent on outcomes and more dependent on your ability to adapt. You stop thinking, "What if I fail?" and you begin asking, "If I fail, what can I learn?" That shift changes everything, because when you trust yourself to learn, adapt and recover, failure loses much of its power over you. As you continue your journey toward becoming extraordinary, remember this: confidence is not something you find. It is something you build. It is built through preparation when no one is watching. It is built through action when fear is present. It is built through keeping promises to yourself and proving, day after day, that you are capable of growth. The extraordinary people you admire were not born believing in themselves. They learned to believe in themselves because they repeatedly showed themselves what they could do, and you can do exactly the same. One courageous action at a time, one commitment at a time, and one challenge at a time, you can build a confidence so strong that it no longer depends on circumstances. It depends on who you have become. Chapter 5. Showing up consistently. Imagine planting a seed in the ground. The first day, nothing happens. A week passes, and still there is no visible sign of progress. Another week goes by, and the soil remains unchanged. If you judged the process only by what you could see, you might assume nothing is happening at all. But beneath the surface, something remarkable is taking place. Tiny roots are spreading through the soil. Strength is being developed where no one can see it. The foundation for future growth is quietly being built. Then one day, a small green shoot emerges. What appears to be sudden growth is actually the result of countless invisible days of development. Success often works the same way. One of the most important habits of extraordinary people is their ability to show up consistently, even when results are not immediately visible. They understand that greatness is rarely created through dramatic bursts of effort. More often, it is built through small actions repeated day after day, month after month, and year after year. This habit sounds simple, yet it is one of the hardest habits to master. Most people love the excitement of a new beginning. They enjoy setting goals, making plans, and imagining the future. There is energy in starting something new. But as time passes, that excitement fades, the work becomes routine, progress slows, challenges appear. This is where many people quit, not because their goal is impossible, but because they expected the journey to feel different. Extraordinary people understand that success is not built on occasional inspiration. It is built on consistency. They do not rely on feeling motivated every day. They do not wait for perfect conditions. They simply continue showing up. This is what separates dreamers from achievers. Anyone can work hard for a day. Anyone can stay committed for a week. Many people can remain focused for a month. But the people who create extraordinary lives are the ones who continue when the excitement disappears and the process becomes ordinary. Think about someone who decides to write a book. Waiting for inspiration may result in a few pages written here and there, but writing one page every day eventually becomes a manuscript. One page becomes 10, 10 become 100. Before long, an entire book exists because of consistency. The same principle applies to every area of life. A person who saves a small amount of money regularly often achieves greater financial success than someone who occasionally saves large amounts but lacks consistency. A person who exercises for 30 minutes most days will usually outperform someone who works out intensely for a few weeks and then quits. A person who reads 10 pages a day will accumulate knowledge that transforms their thinking over time. Extraordinary results are often the product of ordinary actions performed consistently. One reason consistency is so powerful is that it creates momentum. Imagine pushing a heavy boulder. At first, the effort feels enormous. The boulder barely moves. Every push requires tremendous energy, but eventually it begins to roll. Once momentum develops, each push becomes easier and more effective. Life works similarly. The beginning of any worthwhile journey is often the hardest part. New habits feel uncomfortable. Progress appears slow. Doubt begins to creep in. But if you continue showing up, momentum starts to build. What once required constant effort gradually becomes part of your identity. The challenge is that consistency is rarely glamorous. People celebrate achievements, but they rarely celebrate the thousands of quiet moments that made those achievements possible. They see the successful entrepreneur, but not the years spent learning and improving. They see the confident speaker, but not the countless hours of practice. They see the healthy, disciplined individual, but not the daily choices made behind closed doors. Extraordinary people learn to value the process, not just the outcome. They understand that every small action matters, even when no one notices. Perhaps one of the greatest obstacles to consistency is impatience. We live in a world that celebrates quick results. We are constantly exposed to stories of overnight success, instant transformation, and rapid achievement. As a result, many people become discouraged when meaningful progress takes longer than expected. But extraordinary individuals think differently. They understand that the most valuable things in life often require time. Strong relationships take time to build. Trust takes time to earn. Mastery takes time to develop. Character takes time to strengthen. Lasting success takes time to create. Instead of asking, how quickly can I reach my goal, they ask, can I stay committed long enough for the process to work? That mindset changes everything. When you stop obsessing over immediate results and focus on daily actions, you gain a sense of control. You may not control when success arrives, but you can control whether you show up today. And today's effort matters more than most people realize. Every time you choose to follow through, you strengthen your identity. You begin seeing yourself as someone who keeps commitments, someone who can be trusted, someone who finishes what they start. This identity becomes incredibly powerful because lasting change is not merely about what you do, it is about who you become. Consistency transforms actions into habits. Habits transform behavior into character. Character transforms potential into reality. There will be days when progress feels invisible, days when you question whether your efforts matter, days when quitting seems easier than continuing. Those are the moments that define extraordinary people, not because they feel stronger than everyone else, but because they continue despite uncertainty. They trust the process. They understand that every meaningful achievement is built one day at a time. They know that small actions accumulate, just as drops of water eventually fill a bucket, and tiny seeds eventually become towering trees. As you continue your journey, remember this simple truth. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to be extraordinary every day. You only need to keep showing up. The person who consistently takes small steps forward will eventually surpass the person who waits for perfect motivation or perfect conditions. Success is rarely about doing something incredible once. It is about doing the right things repeatedly, day after day, choice after choice, step after step. Because in the end, extraordinary lives are not built through occasional moments of greatness. They are built through the quiet habit of showing up consistently long after everyone else has stopped. Chapter 6. Managing Time with Intention. Every person on earth receives the same daily gift, 24 hours, not 25 for the wealthy, not 30 for the talented, not 40 for the highly successful. Every human being wakes up with the exact same amount of time available. Yet by the end of a year, some people have transformed their lives, built businesses, learned new skills, improved their health, strengthened relationships, and achieved meaningful goals, while others feel as though they have barely moved forward. The difference is rarely time itself. The difference is how that time is used. One of the defining habits of extraordinary people is that they manage their time with intention. They understand that time is life. Every hour spent is an hour that can never be recovered. Every day that passes becomes part of their story. Because of this, they do not treat time casually. They treat it as one of their most valuable resources. Many people believe they need more time to achieve their goals. In reality, what they often need is greater clarity about where their time is going. Have you ever reached the end of a day feeling exhausted, but strangely unfulfilled? You were busy from morning until evening. You answered messages, handled problems, completed tasks, and reacted to countless demands. Yet when you reflect on the day, you struggle to identify anything truly meaningful that moved your life forward. This is one of the greatest traps of modern life. Being busy is not the same as being productive. Extraordinary people recognize this distinction. They understand that activity alone does not create results. A person can spend an entire day occupied and still make little progress toward their most important goals. That is why they focus less on doing more and more on doing what matters most. Imagine a ship crossing the ocean. If the captain constantly changes direction based on every wave and gust of wind, the ship may remain in motion, but it will struggle to reach its destination. The same thing happens when people allow every distraction, request and interruption to dictate their day. Without intention, time becomes fragmented, attention becomes scattered, energy becomes depleted, and progress slows dramatically. Extraordinary individuals begin with priorities. They identify the activities that have the greatest impact on their lives and devote their best energy to those activities first. They know that not all tasks are equal. Some tasks create lasting value, while others merely create the illusion of productivity. This requires making difficult choices. Every time you say yes to one thing, you are saying no to something else. Every hour spent scrolling aimlessly, procrastinating, or engaging in low-value activities is an hour unavailable for growth, learning, health, relationships, or meaningful work. This is not meant to create guilt, it is meant to create awareness. Time is not managed by a calendar alone. Time is managed by decisions. Extraordinary people understand this deeply. They take ownership of their schedules rather than allowing circumstances to control them. They ask themselves important questions. What matters most right now? What activities align with my vision? What distractions are preventing me from becoming who I want to be? These questions help them direct their attention intentionally, because attention is where time truly lives. You can spend an hour reading a book while constantly checking your phone, and very little learning occurs. You can spend an hour in conversation while thinking about something else, and very little connection develops. You can spend an hour working while distracted, and very little meaningful progress is made. Time becomes powerful when attention is focused. This is why extraordinary people protect their focus so carefully. They understand that distractions are not merely interruptions, they are competitors for their future. Every distraction pulls attention away from what matters most. Every unnecessary interruption fragments momentum. Every moment of mindless activity slowly steals opportunities that could have been invested elsewhere. The goal is not perfection. Extraordinary people are not productive every second of every day. They rest, they relax, they enjoy life. But even their rest is intentional. They choose activities that restore their energy rather than drain it. This balance is important because managing time effectively is not about squeezing more work into every hour. It is about aligning your hours with your values. When your daily actions reflect what matters most to you, life begins to feel more meaningful. You stop drifting through your days and start directing them. You begin spending time on growth rather than regret, progress rather than distraction, purpose rather than reaction. And perhaps the most powerful realization of all is this: your future is being created right now. Not someday, not when circumstances improve, not when you feel more prepared. Right now, the person you become is shaped by how you spend your days. Days become weeks, weeks become months, months become years. Eventually, those years become a lifetime. Extraordinary people understand that every day is an opportunity to invest in the future they want to create. They do not wait for more time. They use the time they already have with greater intention. And that simple habit, practiced consistently over years, becomes one of the most powerful forces behind an extraordinary life. Chapter 7. Taking action before you feel ready. There is a quiet lie that keeps millions of people stuck. It whispers, wait a little longer, wait until you have more confidence, wait until you have more knowledge, wait until you have more money, wait until the fear disappears, wait until the timing is perfect. At first, this advice sounds reasonable. Preparation is important. Planning matters. Learning has value. But for many people, waiting becomes a habit rather than a strategy. Days become months. Months become years. Dreams remain dreams because action never arrives. One of the defining habits of extraordinary people is that they learn to take action before they feel completely ready. They understand a truth that most people spend years resisting. Readiness is often created through action, not before it. Think about some of the most significant moments in your life. Chances are you were not fully prepared for many of them. Your first job, your first leadership opportunity, a major move, a new relationship, a difficult challenge. Life rarely hands us situations that come with complete certainty and perfect preparation. Yet somehow, people adapt. They learn. They grow. They figure things out along the way. Extraordinary people recognize this pattern. They stop expecting certainty before moving forward. Instead, they develop confidence in their ability to learn as they go. The desire to feel ready comes from a natural place. Human beings crave security. We want guarantees that our efforts will succeed. We want assurance that we will not fail, look foolish, or make mistakes. Unfortunately, those guarantees rarely exist. Every meaningful goal carries some level of uncertainty. Every worthwhile opportunity involves risk. Every path to growth requires stepping into the unknown. The problem is not uncertainty itself. The problem is believing that uncertainty means you should stop. Imagine standing at the edge of a forest trail that leads toward a beautiful destination. The path stretches far into the distance, disappearing beyond your sight. You cannot see every turn. You cannot predict every obstacle. You cannot know exactly what lies ahead. Would it make sense to refuse the journey simply because you cannot see the entire path? Of course not. You take the first step, then the second, and with each step, more of the path becomes visible. Life works in much the same way. Extraordinary people understand that clarity often follows action. They do not wait for perfect certainty because they know certainty is often impossible. Instead, they trust that movement will reveal information that standing still never can. One reason people delay action is fear of failure. They worry about making mistakes. They fear embarrassment, rejection, criticism, or disappointment. These fears are deeply human. Everyone experiences them. What separates extraordinary individuals is not the absence of fear, it is their relationship with fear. Rather than viewing fear as a stop sign, they view it as evidence that something important is at stake. Fear often appears when growth is nearby. Fear appears when opportunities matter. Fear appears when you are stretching beyond your comfort zone. If you wait until fear disappears, you may wait forever. Extraordinary people learn to carry fear with them instead of allowing fear to control them. They understand that courage is not about feeling fearless. Courage is about taking action while fear is still present. History is filled with examples of people who acted before they felt ready. Entrepreneurs launched businesses without knowing exactly how everything would work. Writers published books despite self-doubt. Leaders stepped into responsibility before feeling fully prepared. Innovators pursued ideas that others considered impossible. Had they waited for complete confidence, many of their greatest achievements would never have happened. Another reason action is so powerful is that it creates momentum. When people overthink, they often become trapped in cycles of analysis. They evaluate every possibility, imagine every worst-case scenario, and search endlessly for the perfect plan. Yet the more they think, the harder action becomes. Movement breaks this cycle. A single action creates energy. A single decision creates momentum. A single step forward often accomplishes more than weeks of overthinking. This does not mean acting recklessly. Extraordinary people still prepare. They still gather information. They still think strategically. The difference is that they do not confuse preparation with progress. Eventually, preparation must give way to action. Otherwise, potential remains unrealized. Perhaps the greatest benefit of taking action before you feel ready is the transformation that occurs within you. Every challenge you face teaches resilience. Every obstacle you overcome builds confidence. Every risk you take expands your comfort zone. You begin discovering strengths that could never be revealed through observation alone. You learn what you are capable of. You realize that many of the limits you once believed were permanent were actually temporary. And slowly your identity begins to change. You stop seeing yourself as someone who waits. You become someone who moves, someone who acts, someone who trusts their ability to adapt. As you continue your journey, remember this simple truth. You do not need to have everything figured out before you begin. You do not need perfect confidence. You do not need perfect conditions. You do not need complete certainty. What you need is the willingness to take the next step, because extraordinary lives are not built by people who wait endlessly for the perfect moment. They are built by people who understand that the perfect moment rarely arrives. Instead, they choose to begin, even when they are uncertain, even when they are afraid, even when they feel unprepared. And through that decision, they discover something remarkable. The confidence they were waiting for was waiting for them on the other side of action. Chapter 8. Taking full responsibility for your life. There comes a moment in many people's lives when they look around and realize that things are not where they hoped they would be. The career isn't progressing as expected. The finances are strained. The relationships feel distant. The goals remain unfinished. In those moments, it is incredibly tempting to look outward for explanations. It feels easier to point to difficult circumstances, unfair treatment, bad luck, or the actions of other people. Sometimes those factors are real. Life is not always fair. People face obstacles they did not choose, setbacks they did not deserve, and challenges that seem impossible to control. Yet one of the most powerful habits of extraordinary people is their refusal to surrender their future to those circumstances. They understand that while they cannot control everything that happens to them, they can always control how they respond. That simple realization becomes a turning point. It shifts them from being passive observers of their lives to becoming active creators of their futures. Taking responsibility does not mean blaming yourself for everything that goes wrong. It does not mean carrying unnecessary guilt or pretending that external challenges do not exist. True responsibility is something much more empowering. It means accepting ownership of your choices, your actions, your attitudes, and your responses. It means recognizing that while you may not control every event, you always have influence over what happens next. This habit separates ordinary thinking from extraordinary thinking. When something goes wrong, many people immediately ask, "Who is at fault?" Extraordinary people ask a different question. They ask, "What can I do now?" One question keeps attention trapped in the past. The other directs attention toward the future. Imagine two people facing the exact same setback. Both lose an important opportunity. Both feel disappointed and frustrated. The first person spends months blaming circumstances, criticizing others, and replaying the event repeatedly in their mind. The second person allows themselves to feel the disappointment, but then begins looking for solutions. They seek feedback, improve their skills, and search for new opportunities. A year later, their lives look completely different. The difference was not the setback. The difference was the response. Extraordinary people understand that responsibility creates power. The moment you blame everything outside yourself, you also give away your ability to change the situation. If your problems are entirely caused by other people, then your future depends entirely on other people. If your circumstances are solely responsible for your results, then you must wait for circumstances to improve before your life can improve. That mindset leaves people feeling powerless. Responsibility does the opposite. It returns power to your hands. It allows you to focus on what can be influenced rather than what cannot. It shifts your attention away from excuses and toward possibilities. This does not make challenges disappear, but it gives you the ability to face them with strength and purpose. One of the reasons responsibility is difficult is because it requires honesty. It asks you to look at your life and tell yourself the truth. It asks difficult questions. Have I been consistent? Have I been disciplined? Have I been using my time wisely? Have I been making choices that align with the future I want? These questions can be uncomfortable because they remove the comfort of excuses, but they also open the door to growth. The extraordinary people you admire are not perfect. They make mistakes. They fail. They experience disappointment and regret. What makes them different is that they learn from those experiences instead of hiding from them. They accept ownership of their decisions, even when doing so is uncomfortable. They understand that every mistake contains a lesson, and every lesson creates an opportunity to improve. Responsibility also extends beyond failures. It applies to success as well. Many people underestimate their own role in positive outcomes. They dismiss achievements as luck or coincidence. Extraordinary people acknowledge the effort, discipline, and persistence that contributed to their results. They understand that recognizing their own contribution strengthens confidence and reinforces positive habits. Perhaps one of the greatest benefits of taking responsibility is the sense of freedom it creates. When you stop waiting for someone else to fix your life, you begin taking action. When you stop waiting for perfect conditions, you start making progress with the conditions you have. When you stop blaming the past, you begin building the future. This does not mean the journey becomes easy. There will still be obstacles. There will still be moments when circumstances seem overwhelming. But responsibility changes your relationship with those challenges. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin asking, "What can this teach me?" Instead of focusing on what is outside your control, you focus on the next action within your control. That shift may seem small, but it has the power to transform an entire life. Every extraordinary achievement begins with someone deciding to take ownership. Ownership of their habits, ownership of their decisions, ownership of their future. As you continue your journey, remember this truth. The quality of your life is greatly influenced by the quality of the choices you make every day. You cannot rewrite the past, and you cannot control every circumstance that comes your way. But you can choose your response. You can choose your attitude. You can choose your actions. Those choices may feel small in the moment, but they shape the direction of your life. Extraordinary growth begins the moment you stop asking who is responsible for your future and start realizing that the answer is you. Not because you control everything, but because you control enough to create meaningful change. And when you fully embrace that responsibility, you unlock one of the greatest sources of personal power that exists. The extraordinary life you seek does not begin with better circumstances. It begins with a better response to the circumstances you already have. That response starts with ownership, and ownership is where true transformation begins. Chapter 9. Turning failure into feedback. Few words create as much fear as the word failure. For many people, failure feels deeply personal. It feels like proof that they are not capable, not talented enough, or not destined for success. A failed business, a rejected application, a missed opportunity, a broken relationship, or an unfulfilled goal can leave emotional scars that linger for years. Some people become so afraid of failure that they stop taking risks altogether. They choose safety over growth, certainty over possibility, and comfort over progress. Yet when you study extraordinary people, you discover something surprising. They do not experience less failure than everyone else. In many cases, they experience far more of it. The difference is not the presence or absence of failure. The difference is how they interpret it. One of the most powerful habits of extraordinary people is their ability to transform failure into feedback. They understand that failure is not a final judgment about who they are. It is information, it is a lesson, it is data that can be used to improve future performance. This shift in perspective changes everything. Imagine a scientist conducting an experiment. If the experiment produces an unexpected result, the scientist does not immediately conclude that they are incapable or destined to fail forever. Instead, they study the outcome. They ask questions. They look for lessons. They gather information that can guide the next attempt. Extraordinary people approach life in much the same way. When something goes wrong, they do not automatically label themselves as failures. Instead, they become students of the experience. They ask, "What can I learn from this?" They search for insights that can help them grow stronger, wiser, and more effective moving forward. Unfortunately, many people make the mistake of confusing an event with an identity. Failing at something does not make you a failure. Making a mistake does not make you incapable. Experiencing a setback does not mean your future is ruined. These distinctions are incredibly important because the stories people tell themselves about failure often determine what happens next. If someone believes failure is evidence that they should quit, they stop trying. If someone believes failure is proof that they are not good enough, they lose confidence. But if someone sees failure as feedback, they remain engaged in the process. They continue learning. They continue adapting. They continue moving forward. This mindset is one of the reasons extraordinary people achieve remarkable results. They understand that every skill requires a learning curve. Every achievement requires mistakes. Every journey includes setbacks. Think about a child learning to walk. Before taking their first successful steps, they fall repeatedly. They lose balance. They stumble. They fail over and over again. Yet no one looks at a toddler and says, "Perhaps walking isn't for you." Why? Because we understand that falling is part of learning. Somewhere along the way, many adults forget this truth. They begin expecting themselves to succeed immediately. They interpret mistakes as evidence of inadequacy rather than evidence of growth. As a result, they become discouraged by experiences that should actually be helping them improve. Extraordinary people never completely lose the willingness to learn through failure. They understand that setbacks often contain valuable lessons that success cannot teach. Success can reinforce what is already working. Failure reveals what needs to change. Failure exposes weaknesses, blind spots, assumptions, and areas for improvement. While these discoveries may be uncomfortable, they are often essential for long-term growth. In fact, many of life's greatest breakthroughs emerge directly from previous disappointments. A rejected idea becomes a better idea. A failed attempt becomes the foundation for future success. A painful setback becomes the catalyst for personal transformation. Of course, this does not mean failure feels good. Disappointment hurts, rejection hurts, loss hurts. Extraordinary people are not immune to these emotions. They feel frustration, sadness, and self-doubt just like everyone else. The difference is that they do not allow those emotions to define their future. They give themselves permission to feel the disappointment, but they refuse to remain trapped by it. After the emotions settle, they return to a powerful question: what is this experience trying to teach me? That question transforms adversity into education. Another important lesson about failure is that it develops resilience. Every challenge you survive becomes evidence that you are stronger than you once believed. Every setback you overcome increases your ability to handle future difficulties. Without challenges, resilience cannot grow. Without obstacles, perseverance cannot develop. Without setbacks, many of life's most important lessons remain hidden. This is why extraordinary people often view failure differently than the average person. They do not seek failure, but neither do they fear it excessively. They recognize that mistakes are an unavoidable part of meaningful achievement. The person who never fails is often the person who never attempts anything significant. The entrepreneur who builds a successful company experiences setbacks. The athlete who wins championships experiences losses. The artist who creates remarkable work faces criticism. The leader who inspires others makes difficult decisions that sometimes go wrong. Failure is not evidence that you are moving in the wrong direction. Sometimes it is evidence that you are challenging yourself enough to grow. As you continue your journey, remember this: your future will not be determined by how many times you fall. It will be determined by what you do after you fall. Will you allow failure to convince you that your story is over? Or will you use it as information that helps write a better next chapter? Extraordinary people choose the second path. They understand that every setback carries a lesson, every mistake contains feedback, and every challenge presents an opportunity to improve. They do not waste failure. They learn from it, they grow through it, and ultimately, they use it as fuel for the extraordinary life they are determined to create. Because failure is not the opposite of success. When approached with the right mindset, it becomes one of success's greatest teachers. Chapter 10. Strengthening Emotional Resilience. Life has a way of testing us when we least expect it. A phone call changes everything. A carefully planned goal falls apart. A relationship ends. A career setback arrives without warning. A season of uncertainty stretches far longer than anticipated. In these moments, it is easy to believe that success belongs only to those who never struggle. Yet when you look closely at the lives of extraordinary people, you discover a very different truth. Their lives are not free from hardship. They are simply better prepared to handle it. One of the defining habits of extraordinary people is emotional resilience, the ability to remain steady, adaptable, and forward-moving even when life becomes difficult. Emotional resilience is not about pretending everything is fine. It is not about suppressing emotions or denying pain. It is about developing the strength to experience challenges without allowing those challenges to permanently derail your life. Every person will encounter adversity. No amount of planning, intelligence, or success can completely eliminate setbacks. The question is not whether difficulties will come. The question is how you will respond when they do. Many people believe resilience is something people are born with. They assume certain individuals are naturally stronger, calmer, or more emotionally equipped than others. But resilience is not a fixed trait. It is a skill that can be developed through experience, awareness, and intentional practice. Think about a tree growing in a sheltered environment where there is no wind. It may appear strong, but its roots remain shallow because they have never been challenged. Now imagine a tree exposed to storms and strong winds. Over time, its roots dig deeper into the earth. The very forces that could have destroyed it become the forces that strengthen it. Human beings often grow in a similar way. Challenges have a way of revealing strengths we did not know we possessed. Difficult experiences force us to adapt, endure, and discover new levels of capability. While nobody enjoys hardship, many of the qualities we admire most, patience, courage, wisdom, perseverance, and empathy, are often forged during life's most difficult seasons. One reason emotional resilience is so important is that emotions influence decisions. When people become overwhelmed by frustration, fear, or disappointment, they often make choices that create additional problems. They react impulsively, they give up prematurely, they say things they later regret. They allow temporary emotions to determine permanent decisions. Extraordinary people work hard to avoid this trap. They understand that emotions are valuable signals, but they are not always reliable leaders. Instead of reacting immediately to every emotional impulse, they create space between feeling and action. They pause, they reflect, they choose their response carefully. This ability to respond rather than react becomes one of their greatest strengths. Consider how differently two people might handle the same setback. Both experience disappointment, both feel frustration, yet one person becomes consumed by negativity and loses sight of their goals. The other acknowledges the pain, processes the emotions, and then refocuses on what can be done next. The challenge was identical, the response was different. And over time, those responses create very different futures. Another important aspect of resilience is adaptability. Extraordinary people understand that life rarely unfolds exactly as planned. They set goals, create strategies, and pursue meaningful objectives, but they also remain flexible when circumstances change. This flexibility allows them to adjust without breaking. When one path closes, they look for another. When a plan fails, they create a new plan. When obstacles appear, they focus on solutions rather than becoming trapped by frustration. Adaptability is powerful because it prevents setbacks from becoming stopping points. Instead, setbacks become detours that eventually lead back toward progress. Resilience also requires perspective. In the middle of a difficult moment, problems often feel larger than they truly are. A single mistake can feel like a catastrophe. A temporary setback can feel permanent. Fear has a way of convincing us that today's challenges will last forever. But extraordinary people learn to zoom out. They remind themselves that one difficult chapter is not the entire story. They understand that many of the struggles that seem overwhelming today may eventually become valuable lessons tomorrow. This broader perspective helps them maintain hope even during uncertain times. Perhaps one of the most important components of emotional resilience is self-compassion. Many people respond to mistakes and setbacks with harsh self-criticism. They speak to themselves in ways they would never speak to someone they care about. Instead of encouraging themselves during difficult moments, they add unnecessary shame and judgment. Extraordinary people understand that growth requires accountability, but it also requires kindness. They take responsibility for their actions without attacking their self-worth. They recognize that being human means being imperfect. They allow themselves to learn from mistakes without becoming defined by them. This balance creates emotional strength. It allows them to recover more quickly from setbacks and continue moving forward. As you continue your journey, remember that resilience is not measured by how rarely you fall. It is measured by how often you rise. It is not the absence of pain, fear, or disappointment. It is the ability to carry those experiences without allowing them to control your future. The extraordinary people you admire have faced challenges, losses, failures, and uncertainty. What makes them extraordinary is not that they avoided hardship, it is that they developed the emotional strength to keep going through it. Every challenge you face is an opportunity to strengthen that same resilience within yourself. Every setback can teach endurance. Every obstacle can develop character. Every difficult season can deepen your understanding of your own strength. And over time you begin to realize something powerful. Life may test you, but it does not have to define you. When emotional resilience becomes a habit, challenges lose much of their ability to stop you. They may slow you down, they may force you to adapt, but they no longer have the power to determine your destination. That power remains in your hands. Chapter 11. Maintaining a positive and growth-oriented mindset. Long before a person changes their life, they usually change the way they think. The transformation is often invisible at first. no one notices it. There are no headlines, celebrations, or dramatic announcements. It begins quietly within the mind. A limiting belief is challenged. A new perspective is adopted. A person who once focused on obstacles begins noticing opportunities. Someone who once doubted their potential starts believing growth is possible. Over time, these internal shifts create external results. One of the most powerful habits of extraordinary people is maintaining a positive and growth-oriented mindset. This does not mean they ignore reality, pretend problems do not exist, or force themselves to be happy all the time. Rather, they develop the ability to approach life with optimism, possibility, and a belief that improvement is always achievable. This mindset becomes the foundation upon which many other extraordinary habits are built. Every action begins with a thought. Every decision is influenced by belief. Before someone starts a business, learns a skill, overcomes a challenge, or transforms their life, they first develop the belief that such a change is possible. If they never believe it can happen, they rarely take the actions necessary to make it happen. This is why mindset matters so much. Your thoughts influence your emotions. Your emotions influence your actions. Your actions influence your results. And those results often reinforce the thoughts that created them in the first place. Imagine two people facing the same challenge. Both encounter an obstacle at work. Both experience criticism. Both face disappointment. One person immediately concludes, "I'm not good enough. I'll never improve." The other thinks, "This is difficult, but I can learn from it." The situation is identical. The interpretation is different, and that difference affects everything that follows. The first person becomes discouraged and avoids future challenges. The second person becomes curious and searches for ways to improve. Over time, their lives begin moving in entirely different directions. Extraordinary people understand that perspective often determines possibility. They train themselves to look beyond immediate setbacks and focus on long-term growth. When problems arise, they do not automatically assume defeat. Instead, they ask constructive questions. What can I learn from this? How can I improve? What opportunity might be hidden within this challenge? These questions direct attention towards solutions rather than limitations. A growth-oriented mindset is built on the belief that abilities can be developed, skills can be learned, weaknesses can be improved, intelligence can expand through effort and experience. While people may begin life with different strengths and circumstances, growth remains available to everyone willing to pursue it. This belief is incredibly empowering because it removes the idea that your future is permanently limited by your current abilities. Extraordinary people rarely see themselves as finished products. They see themselves as works in progress. They understand that who they are today is not necessarily who they will be tomorrow. This perspective allows them to approach challenges with greater confidence because they know that growth is always possible. One of the greatest enemies of a positive mindset is negative self-talk. Many people spend years carrying an inner voice that constantly criticizes, doubts, and discourages them. Every mistake becomes proof of inadequacy. Every setback becomes evidence of failure. Every challenge becomes a reason to quit. The problem is that this inner dialogue gradually shapes identity. If you repeatedly tell yourself that you are incapable, your actions begin reflecting that belief. If you constantly focus on limitations, opportunities become harder to see. The mind starts looking for evidence that confirms what it already believes. Extraordinary people are not immune to negative thoughts, but they are more intentional about managing them. They challenge destructive beliefs instead of accepting them as truth. They replace thoughts that weaken them with perspectives that empower them. This does not mean repeating unrealistic affirmations or pretending everything is perfect. It means choosing thoughts that encourage growth rather than surrender. Instead of saying, "I can't do this," they might ask, "What skills do I need to develop?" Instead of saying, "I always fail," they might ask, "What lesson can I take from this experience?" Instead of saying, "This is impossible," they might ask, "What would make this possible?" These small shifts in language create powerful shifts in thinking. Another important aspect of a growth-oriented mindset is how it responds to feedback. Many people view criticism as a personal attack. They become defensive or discouraged when someone points out areas for improvement. Extraordinary people approach feedback differently. They understand that feedback, when used wisely, can accelerate growth. Even uncomfortable feedback often contains valuable information. Instead of protecting their ego at all costs, they focus on learning. This willingness to learn allows them to improve faster than those who refuse to examine their weaknesses. Positive thinking also plays a crucial role in resilience. During difficult seasons, optimism provides the strength to keep moving forward. It reminds people that setbacks are temporary, that challenges can be overcome, and that better days remain possible. Optimism does not eliminate problems. It changes how problems are approached. When people believe improvement is possible, they persist longer. They search harder for solutions. They remain engaged in the process, even when progress is slow. That persistence often becomes the difference between success and surrender. As you continue your journey, remember that your mind is one of the most powerful tools you possess. The thoughts you nurture today influence the person you become tomorrow. Every belief you strengthen shapes your actions. Every perspective you adopt affects the opportunities you see. Extraordinary people do not succeed because they never face difficulties. They succeed because they choose perspectives that help them grow through those difficulties. They focus on possibilities instead of limitations. They focus on lessons instead of excuses. They focus on growth instead of perfection, and through that mindset, they continually create better versions of themselves. Because the truth is simple yet profound. Your future is not shaped only by what happens to you. It is shaped by the way you choose to think about what happens to you. When you develop a positive and growth-oriented mindset, you begin seeing challenges differently, opportunities more clearly, and your own potential more honestly. That shift in thinking can change everything. Chapter 12. Choosing your environment wisely. Imagine placing a seed in two different environments. One seed is planted in rich soil, given sunlight, water, and room to grow. The other is placed in rocky ground, deprived of nourishment, and surrounded by conditions that make growth difficult. Both seeds may possess the same potential, but over time, their outcomes will be dramatically different. The lesson is simple. Potential matters, but environment matters too. One of the most overlooked habits of extraordinary people is their commitment to choosing their environment wisely. They understand that success is not determined solely by willpower, talent, or hard work. The people they spend time with, the information they consume, the habits they tolerate, and the spaces they occupy all influence the direction of their lives. Many people focus entirely on changing themselves while ignoring the environment that constantly shapes their behavior. They rely on motivation to overcome distractions. They depend on willpower to resist negative influences. They fight uphill battles every day without realizing that part of the problem may be the environment surrounding them. Extraordinary people think differently. They understand that environment silently influences decisions. It shapes expectations, behaviors, beliefs, and standards. Often its impact is so gradual that people fail to notice it. Yet over months and years, the environment a person consistently experiences can dramatically influence who they become. Think about the people in your life. The individuals you spend the most time with influence your thinking more than you may realize. Their attitudes affect your attitudes. Their habits affect your habits. Their expectations influence your expectations. If you spend years around people who constantly complain, avoid responsibility, and settle for less than they are capable of, those patterns can begin to feel normal. Negativity becomes familiar. Excuses become acceptable. Growth becomes less important. On the other hand, if you spend time around people who value learning, personal responsibility, discipline, and growth, their influence begins affecting you as well. Their standards challenge you. Their habits inspire you. Their mindset expands your understanding of what is possible. This does not mean you should judge people or abandon relationships simply because someone is struggling. Extraordinary people often show compassion, support and kindness to others. However, they are also intentional about the influences they allow to dominate their lives. They recognize a powerful truth: what you repeatedly expose yourself to eventually shapes you. This principle extends beyond people. Consider the information you consume every day, the books you read, the videos you watch, the conversations you engage in, the social media content you absorb. All of these influences contribute to your mental environment. Your mind is constantly receiving messages about what is important, what is possible, and what deserves your attention. If your mental environment is filled with negativity, fear, distraction, and comparison, it becomes much harder to maintain focus, optimism, and growth. On the other hand, if you intentionally expose yourself to ideas that educate, inspire, and challenge you, your thinking begins evolving in positive ways. Extraordinary people guard their mental environment carefully because they understand that thoughts influence actions and actions influence results. Another important aspect of environment is physical space. Look around the places where you spend most of your time. Do those environments support the person you want to become, or do they constantly pull you away from your goals? A cluttered workspace can make concentration difficult. Constant distractions can reduce productivity. Unhealthy surroundings can make positive habits harder to maintain. Extraordinary people often make small adjustments to their environments that create significant long-term benefits. They organize their spaces, remove unnecessary distractions, and design environments that encourage success rather than sabotage it. These changes may seem minor, but they reduce friction between intentions and actions. When the environment supports your goals, good habits become easier to maintain. When the environment works against your goals, even simple habits can feel exhausting. This is why many successful people focus less on relying on willpower and more on creating systems and surroundings that make positive behavior more natural. Perhaps one of the most profound truths about environment is that people often underestimate its influence because its effects happen gradually. A single negative conversation may seem harmless. 1 hour of distraction may seem insignificant. A small compromise may appear unimportant, but environments work through accumulation. Day after day, exposure after exposure, influence after influence, they shape beliefs and behaviors in subtle ways. The same principle works positively. A few pages read each day expand knowledge. Regular conversations with growth-minded people expand perspective. A workspace designed for focus improves productivity. Small positive influences accumulate just as powerfully as negative ones. Extraordinary people understand this compounding effect. Rather than waiting for dramatic transformations, they make intentional choices about what and who they allow into their environment. They know that extraordinary lives are often built in ordinary moments through repeated exposure to positive influences. Perhaps the most empowering aspect of this habit is realizing that you have more control over your environment than you might think. You may not control every circumstance, but you can make choices. You can choose which voices deserve your attention. You can choose which habits to encourage. You can choose what information enters your mind. You can choose relationships that support growth rather than constantly undermine it. These decisions shape your future far more than many people realize. As you continue your journey, take an honest look at the environment surrounding you. Examine the conversations you participate in. Consider the content you consume. Reflect on the people who influence your thinking. Observe the spaces where you spend your time. Ask yourself a simple but powerful question. Is this environment helping me become the person I want to be? Extraordinary people ask this question regularly because they understand that success is rarely achieved in isolation. It is supported by environments that encourage growth, learning, responsibility, and purpose. The seed of your potential already exists within you. But like every seed, its growth depends partly on the environment in which it is planted. Choose that environment wisely, and you create conditions where extraordinary growth becomes not only possible, but inevitable. Chapter 13. Communicating with clarity and purpose. There is a surprising truth about success that many people overlook. No matter how talented you are, how intelligent you become, or how hard you work, your ability to communicate will influence nearly every area of your life. Opportunities are discovered through communication. Relationships are strengthened through communication. Trust is built through communication. Leadership, influence, teamwork, and personal growth all depend on the ability to connect effectively with others. Yet despite its importance, communication is often treated as an afterthought. People spend years developing technical skills, but very little time learning how to express their ideas clearly, listen deeply, and connect meaningfully with others. As a result, many opportunities are missed, not because people lack ability, but because they struggle to communicate that ability. One of the defining habits of extraordinary people is their commitment to communicating with clarity and purpose. They understand that communication is more than speaking. It is the bridge between people. It is the tool through which ideas become understood, relationships become stronger, and possibilities become reality. At its core, communication is about connection. Many people assume that good communicators are simply those who speak well. While speaking effectively is important, extraordinary communicators know that listening is equally powerful. In fact, some of the most influential people are not those who speak the most. They are those who listen the best. When people feel genuinely heard, something remarkable happens. Trust begins to form. Defenses begin to lower. Understanding becomes possible. Listening communicates respect in a way that words alone cannot. Unfortunately, many conversations are not really conversations at all. One person is speaking while the other is simply waiting for their turn to respond. Instead of listening to understand, they listen to reply. Extraordinary people approach communication differently. They become fully present. They pay attention not only to words, but also to emotions, tone and meaning. They seek to understand before seeking to be understood. This habit strengthens relationships because people naturally gravitate toward those who make them feel valued and understood. Clarity is another essential component of effective communication. Many misunderstandings occur not because people disagree, but because they fail to communicate clearly. Assumptions replace understanding. Messages become confusing. Important details get lost. Extraordinary people work hard to express themselves with clarity. They think before they speak. They organize their thoughts. They focus on what truly matters, instead of overwhelming others with unnecessary information. This clarity creates confidence. When people understand your message, they are more likely to trust your leadership, support your ideas, and engage with your vision. Whether you are speaking to a friend, a team, a client, or an audience, clarity increases your ability to influence positively. Purpose is equally important. Not every conversation deserves the same energy or attention. Extraordinary communicators understand why they are communicating. They know what they hope to achieve. Sometimes the goal is to encourage. Sometimes it is to inform. Sometimes it is to solve a problem. Sometimes it is simply to strengthen a relationship. This sense of purpose helps them communicate more effectively because their words are aligned with their intentions. Without purpose, communication can become careless. Words are spoken without consideration. Emotions take control. Messages become reactive rather than intentional. Extraordinary people recognize the power of words. They understand that words can inspire confidence or create doubt. They can heal relationships or damage them. They can motivate action or discourage progress. Because of this, they choose their words carefully. This does not mean they become overly cautious or artificial. It means they understand that communication carries consequences. They strive to ensure those consequences are positive rather than destructive. Another important aspect of communication is authenticity. People are remarkably skilled at sensing when someone is being genuine and when they are merely performing. Authentic communication builds trust because it reflects honesty and integrity. Extraordinary people do not feel the need to impress everyone. They focus instead on being sincere. They communicate in ways that align with their values. They are willing to admit mistakes, acknowledge uncertainty, and speak honestly about challenges. This authenticity creates stronger connections because people trust those who are real. Communication also plays a critical role in handling conflict. Disagreements are an unavoidable part of life. Different perspectives, priorities, and experiences naturally lead to tension from time to time. What separates extraordinary people is not their ability to avoid conflict. It is their ability to navigate it constructively. Instead of attacking others, they focus on understanding. Instead of escalating emotions, they seek solutions. Instead of trying to win every argument, they work toward outcomes that strengthen relationships and resolve problems. This skill becomes invaluable in both personal and professional life. Perhaps one of the greatest benefits of effective communication is the opportunities it creates. Throughout history, countless opportunities have emerged because someone communicated an idea clearly, built a meaningful relationship, or inspired others to take action. Talent alone is not always enough. Ideas hidden in silence rarely change the world. Potential that is never communicated often remains unnoticed. Extraordinary people understand this. They learn to share their ideas confidently. They ask thoughtful questions. They build relationships intentionally. They communicate their value without arrogance and their vision without hesitation. Over time, these abilities open doors that might otherwise remain closed. As you continue your journey, remember that communication is not simply a skill, it is a habit. Like every habit, it improves with practice. Every conversation provides an opportunity to listen more deeply, speak more clearly, and connect more meaningfully. The extraordinary people you admire are often exceptional communicators, not because they were born that way, but because they understood the importance of developing this ability. They learned to listen. They learned to express themselves clearly. They learned to communicate with purpose. And through those habits they built stronger relationships, greater influence, and more meaningful opportunities. Because in the end, extraordinary lives are rarely built alone. They are built through connections with others. And those connections are strengthened, nurtured, and sustained through the powerful habit of communicating with clarity and purpose. Chapter 14. Serving others and creating value. If you study the lives of extraordinary people long enough, you begin to notice a pattern that often goes unnoticed by the rest of the world. While many people spend their lives asking, "How can I get more?" extraordinary people eventually begin asking a different question: "How can I give more?" This shift changes everything. At first it may seem counterintuitive. We live in a culture that often celebrates personal achievement, individual success, and material gain. People are encouraged to focus on their own goals, their own ambitions, and their own advancement. Yet some of the most fulfilled, respected, and successful individuals in history built their lives around a principle that appears remarkably simple. They dedicated themselves to creating value for others. One of the defining habits of extraordinary people is their commitment to serving others and solving meaningful problems. They understand that lasting success is rarely achieved by focusing exclusively on themselves. Instead, they focus on contributing, helping, improving, teaching, supporting, and creating value wherever they can. This habit does more than improve the lives of others. It transforms the person practicing it. Think about the people who have had the greatest impact on your life. Perhaps it was a teacher who believed in you when you doubted yourself, a mentor who shared wisdom during a difficult season, a friend who stood beside you when life became challenging, a leader who inspired you to become more than you thought possible. What made these individuals memorable was not simply what they achieved for themselves. It was the value they created for others. Their influence extended beyond personal success. They made life better for the people around them. Extraordinary people understand that true significance comes from contribution. Achievements may bring temporary satisfaction, but creating value for others often brings a deeper sense of meaning and fulfillment. This principle applies in every area of life. The most successful businesses thrive because they solve problems. Customers willingly support them because they provide value. The best teachers create value through education. The best leaders create value by helping others grow. The best relationships flourish because both people are committed to contributing rather than constantly taking. Value is the foundation of lasting success. Yet many people approach life from the opposite direction. They focus primarily on what they can receive. They seek recognition before contribution, rewards before service, results before value creation. Extraordinary people reverse this order. They understand that rewards often follow value. The more problems you solve, the more valuable you become. The more lives you improve, the greater your impact becomes. The more you contribute, the more opportunities often appear. This does not mean becoming a people pleaser or sacrificing your own well-being for everyone else. Serving others is not about neglecting yourself. It is about recognizing that your greatest success often emerges when your abilities benefit those around you. Another reason this habit is so powerful is that it shifts attention away from self-centered thinking. Many people become trapped in constant worry about themselves. They worry about how they are being judged, whether they are successful enough, whether they are falling behind, or whether they are receiving enough recognition. While these concerns are understandable, they often create unnecessary stress and dissatisfaction. Service redirects attention outward. When you focus on helping someone solve a problem, encouraging someone who is struggling, or contributing something meaningful, your perspective begins to change. You become less consumed by your own insecurities and more connected to a larger purpose. This creates a sense of fulfillment that achievement alone cannot provide. Extraordinary people also understand that every person has something valuable to offer. You do not need to be wealthy, famous, or powerful to create value. Sometimes value comes through kindness. Sometimes it comes through knowledge. Sometimes it comes through encouragement. Sometimes it comes through simply showing up for someone when they need support. Small acts often create extraordinary impact. A conversation can change a person's perspective. A word of encouragement can restore someone's confidence. A simple act of generosity can brighten a difficult day. The value you create does not always need to be grand to be meaningful. Over time, these small contributions accumulate. They strengthen relationships, build trust, and create positive influence. They become part of the legacy you leave behind. Because ultimately, people may forget many of the details of what you accomplished, but they rarely forget how you made them feel. They remember the support, encouragement, kindness, and value you brought into their lives. This is why extraordinary people often focus on contribution even after achieving significant success. They understand that fulfillment grows when success becomes larger than personal gain. They begin asking questions such as, how can I use my skills to help others? How can I solve meaningful problems? How can I leave people better than I found them? These questions lead to a different kind of life. A life driven not only by ambition, but by purpose. A life measured not only by achievements, but by impact. A life defined not only by what was accumulated, but by what was contributed. As you continue your journey, remember that one of the most reliable ways to create an extraordinary life is to help create a better life for others. Look for opportunities to add value. Look for problems you can solve. Look for ways to encourage, support, teach, and contribute. You do not need to change the entire world overnight. You simply need to improve the part of the world you can influence. Extraordinary people understand that greatness is not found solely in personal achievement. It is found in the ability to make a meaningful difference in the lives of others. In the end, success becomes far more rewarding when it is shared. And the value you create for others often becomes the very thing that creates an extraordinary life for you. Because the people who leave the greatest mark on the world are rarely those who asked, what can I get? They are the ones who consistently asked, how can I help? And then devoted their lives to answering that question. Chapter 15. Pursuing Daily Improvement. Imagine standing at the edge of a shoreline, watching water slowly shape a massive rock. Day after day, the waves return. They do not arrive with dramatic force. They do not transform the rock overnight. Their impact seems almost insignificant. Yet over time, something extraordinary happens. The rock begins to change. Sharp edges become smooth. The landscape itself is reshaped, not because of one powerful wave, but because of thousands of small ones. This is how extraordinary lives are built. Many people spend their lives searching for a breakthrough. They wait for the perfect opportunity, the life-changing moment, the sudden transformation that will instantly elevate them to a new level of success. While breakthroughs do happen, extraordinary people understand a deeper truth. Lasting transformation is usually the result of small improvements practiced consistently over time. One of the final habits shared by extraordinary people is their commitment to daily improvement. They do not become obsessed with perfection. They do not demand immediate results. Instead, they focus on becoming slightly better today than they were yesterday. This habit may seem simple, but its long-term impact is profound. The reason many people struggle with growth is because they underestimate the power of small changes. They believe that if progress is not dramatic, it is not meaningful. As a result, they become discouraged when their efforts do not produce immediate results. Extraordinary people think differently. They understand that success often operates through a principle known as compounding. Just as money grows through compound interest, personal growth compounds through repeated effort. A single-page read today may not seem important. One workout may not transform your health. One conversation may not change a relationship. One day of discipline may not dramatically alter your future. But when these actions are repeated consistently, their impact begins to multiply. Over weeks, months, and years, small improvements accumulate into remarkable results. This mindset removes a great deal of unnecessary pressure. Instead of asking, "How can I completely transform my life right now?" extraordinary people ask a much more effective question. What is one thing I can improve today? That question shifts attention toward progress rather than perfection. Perfection is intimidating because it feels unattainable. Progress feels achievable. When people pursue perfection, they often become paralyzed by mistakes. They fear failure. They become discouraged when they fall short of impossible standards. Eventually, many give up altogether. Extraordinary people avoid this trap because they understand that growth is not a straight line. There will be good days and difficult days. There will be successes and setbacks. There will be periods of rapid progress and periods where growth feels slow. The goal is not perfection. The goal is improvement. This perspective creates resilience because setbacks no longer feel like proof of failure. They become part of the learning process. A missed day does not become a reason to quit. A mistake does not become a reason to surrender. Instead, extraordinary people focus on returning to the process as quickly as possible. They know that consistency over time matters far more than occasional perfection. Another powerful aspect of daily improvement is that it strengthens identity. Every positive action sends a message to yourself about who you are becoming. When you read regularly, you reinforce the identity of a learner. When you exercise consistently, you reinforce the identity of someone who values health. When you practice discipline, you reinforce the identity of someone who follows through. Over time, these actions become evidence. They shape how you see yourself. And identity is powerful because people tend to act in ways that align with their self-image. Extraordinary people understand that small actions are never truly small. Every action is a vote for the person they want to become. This is why they pay attention to daily habits. They know that habits eventually shape character, and character ultimately shapes destiny. Perhaps one of the greatest benefits of pursuing daily improvement is that it keeps life exciting. There is something deeply fulfilling about growth. Human beings are designed to learn, develop, and evolve. When people stop growing, they often feel stagnant. Life begins to feel repetitive and uninspiring. Growth brings energy. Growth creates possibility. Growth reminds us that our future can be better than our present. Extraordinary people never assume they have arrived at their final destination. No matter how successful they become, they remain students. They continue learning, improving, and refining their skills. They understand that there is always another level of growth available. This mindset keeps them humble, while also keeping them ambitious. They celebrate progress without becoming complacent. They appreciate how far they have come, while continuing to pursue how far they can go. Another important lesson is that improvement should not be measured only by external achievements. Some of the most meaningful growth happens internally, becoming more patient, becoming more disciplined, becoming more courageous, becoming more grateful, becoming more emotionally resilient. These forms of growth may not always be visible to others, but they often have the greatest impact on the quality of life. Extraordinary people understand that success is not simply about what they accomplish. It is also about who they become in the process. As you reflect on everything covered throughout this audiobook, you may notice a common thread connecting every habit. Clear vision, discipline, learning, confidence, consistency, responsibility, resilience, communication, service, and growth all share one fundamental principle: they require ongoing improvement. No single habit is mastered overnight. No extraordinary life is built in a day. Everything worthwhile develops gradually, one choice at a time, one habit at a time, one improvement at a time. As you move forward from this chapter, remember that you do not need to make massive changes all at once. You do not need to become perfect. You do not need to transform your entire life by tomorrow. You simply need to improve a little today, then improve a little tomorrow, and continue doing so for long enough that those small improvements compound into something extraordinary. Because the secret of extraordinary people is not that they are radically different from everyone else. It is that they never stop growing. And when daily improvement becomes a habit, extraordinary results become inevitable. As we reach the end of this journey, it is worth remembering one powerful truth. Extraordinary people are not born different. They do not possess a secret advantage that is unavailable to everyone else. They experience fear, doubt, failure, setbacks, and uncertainty just like anyone else. The difference lies in the habits they choose to practice every day. Throughout this audiobook, you have discovered 15 habits that shape extraordinary lives. From creating a clear vision and practicing self-discipline, to embracing lifelong learning, building confidence, taking responsibility, strengthening resilience, communicating effectively, serving others, and pursuing daily improvement, each habit represents a small but powerful choice. On its own, each choice may seem insignificant. Together they become life-changing. The encouraging news is that you do not need to master all 15 habits overnight. Extraordinary transformation rarely happens in a single moment. It happens gradually, through consistent action, one better decision, one new habit, one courageous step forward. Day after day, those actions begin to shape a new identity and a new future. Perhaps the most important lesson from this audiobook is that your future is not determined by your past. It is not determined by where you started, the mistakes you have made, or the challenges you have faced. Your future is shaped by the choices you make from this moment forward. Every extraordinary life was once ordinary. Every successful person was once a beginner. Every remarkable achievement started with a decision to take action. Today you have that same opportunity. The habits are now in your hands. The knowledge is yours. The choice is yours. Years from now, the life you create will be the result of the actions you choose to repeat starting today. So take the first step. Stay committed to growth. Trust the process. Continue becoming a little better each day. Because extraordinary lives are not found. They are built. And yours begins now.